Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
Welcome to the 57th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. On this week's show, we're talking to Andrew Doyle, the VP at M5 Communications, and he'll be regaling us with stories of building a 60-person advertising agency in Canada, why he left to start a SaaS product and then came back to lead another large agency, M5 Communications. Well, I would like to welcome Patrick Edmonds to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being on. So Kevin is on vacation right now, and Patrick, in my opinion, is a much better co-host to have anyway.
Wow.
He's looking at me like,
Kevin's going to kill me.
No, Kevin doesn't care. Tease him a lot. No, Patrick joined us at Proposify about, 3 months ago or so?
May.
Yeah. And you are, well, tell the listeners what you do here.
Ooh, I am a growth marketer, which came
You
from...
wanted growth hacker as a title.
Well, growth hacker was the job position. And I thought hacker was a little bit of a temporary word.
Yeah. Well, we were never going to call the actual person a growth hacker. It was just meant to get the right people in, which clearly it worked.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So you came from another agency.
Yeah, I did a media agency, full service.
And you were doing mostly paid, like AdWords and PPC kind of stuff for them.
Yeah, display media, video, social, anything you can buy to put your brand message out there, basically.
Very cool. So we actually have an interview coming up shortly with Andrew Doyle, who is a bigwig at a fairly large agency here in Atlantic, Canada. But yeah, I wanted to have you on the show, Patrick, just to chat about a few things and, I don't know, hopefully educate our listeners.
Well, I hope so.
All right, well, what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Well, agency business. It's
You want to talk about our sweet Band on the Run rendition last weekend? We were at a birthday party.
coworker's 30th birthday.
Yeah.
And
You were doing the keyboards?
Kyle pulled up a guitar off the wall, tuned it. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And I downloaded a keyboard app on my phone and played the...
I should play a little clip of that right there.
We should have recorded it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, anyway, what to you, Patrick, or for you, I should say, what's been the biggest change that you've noticed? So you used to work at an agency and doing, service work for clients and managing their paid spend and all that kind of stuff. And how has it been different working for one company in-house?
That was a big change, and one reason that I was excited to come to Proposify. I was working on the business a lot, and people say it's hard to find time to get out of working in the business for on the business.
How would you apply that though to usually you think of sort of business owners and working in the business versus on the business, but I guess from a client standpoint, what does that mean?
Yeah, I was, most of my goals and objectives it was delivering on the campaign goals for the client. I was very focused on saying, okay, what is your problem and how do we solve this? And I think sometimes from an agency owner's perspective, you have to juggle that, keeping your client happy and delivering on what they want to do, but also running your own business, running your agency.
Yeah,
that's something that's certainly a hard thing to juggle. I think for an agency owner, he'd certainly know a lot more about that than I would. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think the best agency owners kind of, they work on the business and they're not involved as much in the day-to-day client work. Hire good people, trust them to deliver results, give them kind of autonomy over the client projects and stuff. But it sounds like when you were working at an agency, it sounds like you were kind of you involved in not as many stages of the sales funnel, right?
Yeah, once campaigns came through, I was not on the onboarding process of a client and not on the sales process, but really the follow through of delivering what that service was, and certainly enjoy that quite a bit. But now I'm excited at Proposify to be able to see the whole thing, I guess, from our perspective. It is delivering a service to our clients the whole way through, and bringing on the clients as well. It's something I'm really excited to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've been doing a great job, too, at looking at sort of all those different stages of the funnel, and not just focused on driving traffic, but does it convert, and what are the... I mean, you're pretty crazy when it comes to analytics and numbers. Well, what was it? You're like a triple threat. So you had training in business, marketing, and like computer science, right?
Yeah, when I went to school, it was a little bit different. My classmates would go to a lot of psychology classes, which are great for marketers as well, and then go to marketing classes. But I'd be coming right out of a cryptography computer science course, then going to my marketing class. Two very different groups of people taking those courses and trying to combine kind of different skill sets that I had to make them something that I don't think a lot of marketers have. And we hear a lot about big data right now, and marketers coming into the world that need to know more about how the math works behind the scenes. And I certainly think that I agree with that kind of way that a marketing trend might be moving, and tried to focus my skills there as much as I could.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't, in honor of Kevin not being here, if I didn't say big data. Big data. Data. Yeah, I'm sorry. Data was said. That's the magic word. Okay. Yeah, very cool. Geez, I don't know. That's it.
Want to hear the nice little podcast from this week?
Oh, yeah, the interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. We had Mr. Doyle in. I think I was saying, when I asked him what he wanted to talk about through our little Calendly form, he just said agency shit. It wasn't very specific. So, actually, no, it's cool. We had him in, and he had a good chat about mainly talking about the Extreme days. So he used to be a partner at Extreme, which is kind of I'd say for Canada, it's probably one of the top named agencies, really, in terms of
Halifax and Toronto, the two offices.
Halifax and Toronto, and they usually are in the award circuit, winning different things. They're kind of in a lot of ways like a traditional agency. Anyway, he's not there anymore, but he basically helped build that company, which has been around for a long time now. So it was kind of cool getting some little stories about those days, and then he went to start a SaaS product, and then now he's back in the agency business working at M5.
Very cool.
Yeah. Seasoned pro, I guess,
Been around the block.
Yeah, he's lived it. So anyway, let's jump into that interview now with Andrew Doyle. We're very pleased to have Andrew Doyle on the show today. Andrew is the Senior Vice President of M5 Marketing and Communications here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. In-person interview. Welcome to the Proposify studios, Andrew.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's very nice to be here on lovely Barrington Street.
It's nice to have somebody in person. I know, Kevin, you like the in-person.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Love it. You don't have to deal with any internet issues.
I know. Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Well, we're excited to have you, and I think there's a ton we want to talk about. So what's kind of interesting about you and sort of your career path is you used to be the partner of Extreme Group here in Halifax as well, but pretty notable agency. They have a Toronto office, and they've done work with really big brands, and you did that for, I think, 9 years, right?
Yeah, almost 10.
Yeah. And then you kind of went to a software startup for a few years, and...
Became an entrepreneur again. Got into the software startup business to make a lot less money and have a lot more headaches, but feel like an entrepreneur again. And then came back into this world, which wasn't really planned, but it's working out okay.
They just handed you that VP job.
Well, it's something that comes naturally to me. As I walk down the street, people offer me jobs. So.
Oh, must be nice.
It's quite
nice.
Actually, we have a job for you after this podcast.
Yeah. It's usually picking up trash or cleaning up beer bottles.
Usually when people book a time for the podcast and it sort of says, like, what do you want to talk about? Is there anything particular you want to talk about? Your topic was agency shit. That was what you wrote.
Well, that's pretty much what my life has been, is agency shit. So I'm quite deep into it, actually.
Yeah. Well, let's go back in time and talk about Extreme for
Sure.
a little bit, because I mean that made up a big portion of your career,
And that's
right?
where we first met.
Yeah,
you guys,
exactly.
Kevin, you're right. You worked at Extreme.
I think 2003 is when I met you. 2004.
Extreme
Way back.
Interactive.
Yeah, way
It
back.
was- and it was an interesting place.
In hindsight, do you think it was smart for them to break it into three sub companies, or because eventually they all merged into one anyway? What was the reasoning behind that at the time?
Well, what I'm fond of saying at Extreme is we made every mistake you could probably make, and we didn't know. So, Paul came out of the cell phone business. I came from a marketing and PR background, having worked in a couple of agencies and believed in the integrated model. And really, at the time, interactive was new. It was the time of why is the logo on fire? Because we can make the logo be on fire. That kind of stuff in the interactive space was kind of cool, and we thought at that time the best way to attack that was to have experts in every field. What you learned pretty quickly was when you talk to bigger clients, they didn't want to pay for account service and creative thought and strategy from 3 different companies under the same umbrella. It just made sense to have people who were conversant in all media. People use the term media agnostic now, but it's someone that could do good strategy and then figure out what tools they needed. And honestly, that was a turning point for me in my career, and how I approach this business is there will be media and tools that we can use in this business forever that will change and be new. The one thing that will never change, or I hope never changes, is the strategy side, is being able to sit down with a client and figure out their problem, whether it's a marketing problem or not, and then say, you know what, we can help there, and we probably have some tools that can help you actually figure that out and make your business better. And I think, we went through the time of 3 different companies, and there was a lot of internal fights. I have to say that what is more valuable, and any market tends to go towards the thing that's most comfortable for them. And at the time, that was just traditional advertising, billboards, TV spots, radio spots, what have you. So Jamie, our partner on the interactive side, and myself on the PR and communication side, we felt like, they just don't value it. And the more I saw that, the more I felt like we had to have one solution to offer the clients, so that they walk into a room, they look and they see 6 people, they see dollar signs.
Yeah. So whereas at one point you were kind of you were head of the PR, that was your thing, right? And then how did that change once you merged? You became partner, and what kind of responsibilities did you have there?
I went from running the Extreme Public Affairs to being president of Extreme Group, and my role, and I'd actually played this years before at an agency that's become national, public relations, but it was MacArthur Thompson and Law at the time.
You were there?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I was one of the early guys, or one of the early people that wanted to bring the PR side and the ad side together, and it was the same thing at Extreme. My job was to figure out generally how we went to business as one company, and how we could package that up, make it attractive enough for clients in the region and outside of the region to buy one company to do all of those things and think of their business holistically.
So, I mean, between Extreme and M5, like, these are both, I mean, I wouldn't call them massive agencies, because, I mean, there are agencies out there in the world that are huge, but, I mean, for what most people think, like, these are big agencies.
Well, for the area, yeah.
In this region,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And you guys are I mean, I'm sure you work with some smaller clients too, but for the, I know Extreme had Procter & Gamble and really huge companies, and you guys won like Cannes Awards. And
I shaved my legs for Procter & Gamble.
Did you?
Yeah, I bet the agency. I said if we win the P&G business, and it was on female grooming, if we win the business, I will shave my legs. And there was at one time a video of me shaving my legs to Shania Twain's "Man, I Feel Like a Woman," but due to some copyright concerns, that was removed from the internet as far as I know.
Didn't she have a song called "Did I Shave My Legs for This"? I think she did, actually.
Really?
That would have been better. I mean, I don't listen to Shania Twain or anything.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
The best feeling in the world, though, like honestly, guys, you have to try this, is to slide into bed with freshly shaved legs and freshly laundered sheets. Oh. The ladies talk about it, but it's a thing.
Wow. It sounds delightful.
It does.
Okay, you did the pitch to Procter and Gamble, and I'm sure the listeners are going to be fascinated to hear this. I mean, the legs thing was cool too, but like, how do you win a big client? Where do you get the lead? How does that happen? And then what are the steps to turn them into this big recurring engine for your client base?
You fuck a lot of things up on the way to getting there.
Okay, specifically.
Well, I've never seen a sales guy like Paul LeBlanc. Come on.
Well, you know what? I learned a ton from Paul. I really did, and I learned a lot of things that I'll carry forward as things to do, and probably a lot of things that I'd say I wouldn't advise doing in pitches. But
dropping F-bombs and stuff.
Yeah, well, with something like P&G, it's a lot of legwork. And they have their choice of any agency in Canada. So, you have to have credibility going into the room. So there's a lot of people that have to be on your side. So before you get in the room, you need someone to make that introduction. And once that introduction is made, they're going to check you out, whether you like it or not. So there has to be some good stuff in your book. There has to be good stuff in the portfolio. And we didn't sell ourselves as more than what we were. We had a very small Toronto office. We had a fairly significant office in Halifax. What we sold ourselves on was basically that, we will dig into this problem in this one category and do really good work for you. And, you can go on any agency's website and see all of this stuff about strategy and insights and that sort of thing. But with the P&G pitch, it was really about digging down into, not, what do women want to buy to groom themselves with. It was digging down into, what do they get out of it? And then being able to talk to the folks at P&G and say, you know what, this is not just going to be another shelf talker. This is not just going to be another display. We want to create something that's a little poppier.
Mic poppy.
Like the mic pops.
I love that you work that analogy into your story. Okay, so it's basically you have to have a reputation. You've already had to kind of build that reputation up to that point to get in the room, right?
Yeah, and it was different in Toronto. Like when I started with Extreme in 2000, 2002, somewhere in between there. And the reputation was already starting to come, a very creative shop, needed some business chops, whatever. But we grew like crazy. We the first 18 months, we went from 9 to about 60 people.
Wow.
Which was nuts.
That's insane.
And we tried to figure out what market we were going to go into next.
Okay, 0 to 60, that's super fast growth.
Yep.
How do you do that in 9 months? Like,
it was more like 18 months, and like I said before, mistakes. And probably one of the biggest mistakes was that quick growth. Was anytime we had a problem, we threw people at it.
So is that we just closed 3 or 4 new clients, and now we need people to execute. We need to hire.
Yeah. Anyone 2 feet in a heartbeat that knew anything about the advertising business, if they had seen an ad before, we were like, yeah, come on in, join us. It'd be great.
I applied at Extreme in 2004 when I was fresh out of college. Didn't even get a call back. I mean, it's not your fault. I'm just saying.
No,
I'm like,
I think listen. I think that when things are rocking like that shit like that happens. Like you'll hire whoever's on the top of the pile, and your resume might have come in the day before. And I'm not saying it's right. It's just the reality. And
I was pretty shitty back then too.
No, and you're probably looking for more experienced people that you'd have to,
Well, in some cases, we just wanted people to run around and do shit for us, and in a lot of ways, that's the best way to learn the business. One of the things we learned as we grew, though, is you needed those experienced people. One of the things that we lack in this region, and even to some extent in Toronto, is that system of progression for people to learn the business by doing the business, as opposed to coming out of Humber as a copywriter and saying, okay, I want to write campaigns for Jeep or GM or whatever. And it's even worse on the account side. It really is. And one of the things that I grew as over my tenure at Extreme was from a marketing and advertising and PR guy into a business person, and understood more about business. And that, that's another thing that's colored how I view what we do and what value we add as an industry. Excuse me. They're feeding me beer here.
Yeah, it happens. Burps happen.
Yeah, they do. But the ability to step back, get out of your own bathwater for a little while and say, okay, what other things are getting in the way of us getting this business? And it's something that I think will serve the industry better if we understand. We're not just in there to sell shit to our clients and get them to do shit. We're going in there to grow their business. And that to me is most important, because if you grow their business, you should grow your revenue.
What I always found interesting is the public affairs business was the best business you guys did. I'm not just saying that because that was you, but I'm sure you brought a lot of value in from that side of it. Because you look at Reasons to Smoke, put them on the map.
Do you mean in terms of revenue, that was the the best business?
No, well, I'd say award-winning, but it leads to revenue because I think it brought a lot of business. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those fortuitous things. I'm not going to say it was all luck, but timing is everything in business, as well as the rest of your life. And 6 weeks in, we had an opportunity to pitch the province of Nova Scotia for an anti-smoking campaign, and it had really fallen off the radar. And I said, I want this thing to try and make some change on the social marketing side. And believe it or not, back in the day, there was no term social marketing. It wasn't about behavior change and all that sort of stuff. It was, how do we get more people to stop smoking? Because we in Nova Scotia had the worst smoking rates around. And we pitched and won that business. It was 6 weeks in, and I have to mention this story. The night before the pitch, we had the presentation deck, everything ready, and my daughter Megan was a baby at the time, and it was my night to go up and feed her a bottle in the middle of the night when she cried at 3 a.m. And as I'm sitting up there, a bottle jammed in her mouth and half asleep. I was like, the whole presentation's wrong. It's all about us and not about them. So I actually didn't go back to sleep. I changed the presentation, got into the office at 6. We changed everything, just in terms of tone and how we talked to them. Another great lesson was, no one wants to hear about us. They want to hear about themselves. How are you going to help them? And we won that business, and it was, from a revenue perspective, at the time, they're spending lots of money to convince Nova Scotians to stop smoking. And we built a campaign that was called Great Reasons to Smoke. Oh, it was brilliant. Sounds counterintuitive. And I would say if it was released today and with the social media and sharing culture that there is now, it would have been a global phenomenon.
So when you were feeding your daughter that bottle, were you watching some FUBAR? Is that how that all came?
No, FUBAR was 100% Sean King. Like the Great Reasons to Smoke was, it was an idea that came out of the creative team. That's another thing that Extreme did really well, is we had a very collaborative environment, and Sean
For the listener, Sean King is and still is, I believe, the creative director or the chief creative officer or whatever they call them now.
He is the grand poobah of creative at Extreme Group.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have the perfect guys for this. And they turned out to be the perfect anti-hero in the smoking world. But, to Kevin's point, it put us on the map creatively. It was a simple, insightful idea. It was creating the anti-Marlboro Man. It was memorable, fun, viral in the sense that you could be viral in the early 2000s.
Yeah. We should post a link to this in the show notes so people listening know what we're talking about. But basically, it was I remember the print campaign really well. I remember Anthony Taff, actually, who was an art director there at the time, worked on that campaign. He did he spoke or gave a presentation to my design class way back then because it had just come out and I was still in school.
It was it was a phenomenon. Like there were universities that that were booking the guys from FUBAR to come down and actually come on campus and help make their campus smoke free.
But was that a tough pitch though? Because it's very you think of like a government client, which it was, going, okay, we're going to say to people, this is why you smoke.
Yeah, great reasons to smoke. It was, and this is the yin and the yang, is you have great ideas, and every agency has great ideas, and it's the client's willingness to take a risk to see the reward. And we were incredibly fortunate to have a client, a few people on the client side. Nancy Hodnott was from Health Promotion, Wendy Barnable from Communications Nova Scotia, Miriam Murray from Communications Nova Scotia. They basically called me and said, we need to get this through the government. How do we do this? And the only way to do that with the government is really to base it on facts. We looked at the research that was out there and said, fear-based appeals don't work, threats don't work, facts and stats don't work. People absorb them, and they're like, okay, cognitive dissonance, it's not going to happen to me. I know it's risky, but it's going to happen to Kyle, not Andrew.
Right.
So we put together a great little case right up to the minister, and we were lucky enough to get the idea approved. And once the idea was approved, it's funny how many people get on that bandwagon afterwards that were, maybe a little skeptical in the beginning. We met with 4 deputy ministers just down the road from here, who were all very concerned about the political side of things.
Oh yeah.
But once it started to take off, everybody was like, I was behind that from the beginning. That was my baby.
People.
Yeah, there's a lot of fathers around when your baby is successful.
Whoa. Yeah, that's true. I guess. I'm trying to form that analogy in my brain. But I guess did you come to the pitch where I assume you were competing with other agencies? Mm-hmm. Did you come to the pitch with that idea, or did you pitch yourselves and how you're going to help, and then do create the idea once you had the business?
The idea was created once we had the business, and to be honest, they were an ideal client to pitch to as well, because we made the pitch about them. That was that sort of 180 that we did the night before, and but it wasn't really about them. It was about the problem and the challenge that they faced, and the fact that we didn't have all of the answers. And that's a great piece of feedback to get in the debrief, which is everybody else came in with an answer. They said, here's how you fix this, and ours was, man, this is a tough problem. It's been around for a long time. There's tons of research here. We don't quite know how to fix this yet, but we have a great team around that are willing to work with you guys to actually fix this thing. And I think that, again, you as an agency, you sort of ebb in and out of those moments of clarity. When you're most insecure, you're usually lecturing and telling people what they need. When you're at your most secure, and I was 6 weeks in, I have no idea what these guys really need, so let's be honest about it. And they were a great client because they were like, you know what, we know that what's been tried before isn't working the way we need it to. Now let's figure out a way to do this a little bit differently, and we'll figure it out together.
There are so many takeaways from that, I think, for people listening, like from a pitch standpoint and from a new business standpoint, is like focusing on the client, their needs, not talking too much about yourself.
It's hard.
Yeah. And doing your research, like you said, like the way you sold that hard, kind of out there idea was you did your research. You didn't just come with them with like, hey, we want to win awards and be really weird and different.
I don't like to overcomplicate this business. I've done talks in front of large audiences and said, one of the things I want to do is take the bullshit out of advertising, because there's a lot of bullshit associated with our business, and in terms of going into a pitch, what I would tell our team is, an expert's anyone around the table that knows one more thing than you do about a particular topic. But the other thing I said is we got to bring them some kind of gift, some little present that shows them that we've been thinking about them, that we've talked about them, that they matter to us. And I think that that's probably, for the right kinds of clients, for the right kinds of agencies, that's probably the most important thing is the relationship analogy holds. Like if you make them feel valued, if you make them feel like they're worth your effort, like what does it take to Google some stuff about a particular topic and come in and say, this is a little bit interesting. What do you guys think? Ask their opinion. Make them feel. Pitching business shouldn't be that hard. Some people want to have the answer delivered to them. You get requests for spec creative in that case, and that's just guessing. And you're going to pick the best guesser. Yeah. I would rather have someone come in and say, you know what, I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I've looked at this from a number of different angles. I don't have it figured out yet, but there's something interesting over here. There's something interesting over there. What do you guys think? Make me part of the solution.
Is that the approach you guys take at M5 now? Like, do you still do spec work or anything like that? Any spec pitches? Yeah,
we do spec work, but I think everyone does it reluctantly, and there's some agencies that don't, and I applaud them for doing that. But the fact is, in this region, I think it's true across North America, is budgets are increasingly under pressure. There's a look for specialization, so they're like, we're going all digital. Well, digital doesn't matter unless you have good strategy, but there is always that pressure to deliver cash flow. That keeps people employed, that keeps the thinkers there, that keeps the designers there, that keeps everyone there. So, you get stuck into spec work. I don't think anyone goes willingly into a spec pitch, saying this is our best stuff, and this is, in a lot of cases it's a beauty contest, and I don't think that's fair to the industry. I don't think it's fair to the clients either. I think you're going to get something that might be pretty, but could be off strategy, might not talk to the audience that you want it to. So you have to, to keep your business viable, you have to make business decisions all of the time, and it might not be what everybody in the agency wants to hear, but it's tough, man. And like I think my hardest times at Extreme, and not so much at M5, but at Extreme, when you're an owner and you have to go in and say, hey, this is what we put up on the wall. This is what we believe in, this kind of agency we want to be. But for everybody to have a job, we have to go and work with this client that might not be exactly, what fits our vision and values and all of those sorts of things.
What's interesting, we had an interview, I think 2 weeks ago.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, and
we had the same discussion.
Yeah, their team actually votes on every client that comes to the door if they should take them or not.
Now, mind you, this is a very small company. This is I think 5 to 10
but
people.
But in a huge area.
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's.
But they talked about basically this scoring system. What was the name? Guy from Portland.
1 to 5.
Yeah.
I think it was.
But that was the thing I asked is like, what if you get to the point where you're just like, you know what, we need business. Okay, if people don't want to work on this, like, what do you do?
We don't have that luxury in this region.
Well, I'd love to have the luxury, as Kevin puts it, of being able to sit back and say, no. And listen, there are lines in the sand that I think everybody draws morally. But one of the things I learned becoming an entrepreneur was early days, Paul and I put in 10 grand each, and I started the public affairs team. And it was just me. I flipped open the top of my Mac and I was like, okay, now I got to go find business. As you start to add people, your responsibility grows, and how you view that stuff kind of grows, because you're not human unless you look around and say, I could refuse this piece of business, but those two people are going to be out of a job, and she just had a baby and he is, planning on getting married. Yeah, right. And as much as you want to say it's all about business, it can't all be about business, or it shouldn't be all about business. Now, we're in the branding business. We're in the business of helping people understand and deliver on their values. It gets into a slippery slope when you say, yeah, we value this until. But if you value the people you have and the work you do, and I'm an internal optimist, so I always think that even if we take on a shitty client that wants us to do spec work and they don't value strategy, the more time we spend with them, the more conversations we have with them, the more trust we grow with them, the better a client they will be, and that'll be better for everyone. Even if they decide to leave us, the next agency that comes along would be like, man, they're a great client. They listen to us. They value what we do.
You've raised them as you know.
Well, I don't want to take too much credit for it, but I've been involved in ICE, which in the region is an award show that celebrates the work from here. And we've talked about our work is as good as anywhere in the world. And I truly believe that. And I've been to California and New York and Boston and Cannes, and I've seen it. And I think our thinking and work is as good as anywhere in the world. What I want us to understand is we have to bring our clients along to accept the risks that come along with doing great work. And it's not because of awards, it's because it actually helps their business. The idea that, okay, I'll keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, we all know what that is. It's the definition of insanity. So we will, one of the hardest things to overcome is a client that doesn't trust you, a client that thinks that you're trying to put one over on them by giving them this wacky creative. Well, I think any agency worth their salt is trying to do something different to make that client's business better.
Do you think that they all are, though? Or do you think that there are some clients with well-founded fears because there are agencies out there that their primary goal is to win awards and do something different that doesn't necessarily... improving their business is secondary to being recognized for having this awesome, cool, different idea?
Yeah, and I think, of course, there are agencies that are driven by that. And every agency has to have a reason for being. But I think, I would actually argue that early days at Extreme, what we were doing was trying to win awards. We wanted to be noticed. We wanted to be the creative shop. And then clients start asking for more. Yeah, you're creative, but so what? How's it going to help my business? So there has to be an evolution. And, I'm fairly Darwinian in that respect, thinking that, those shitty shops that are just going to say, hey, isn't this cool? It's a flaming logo. They'll go away because just through natural attrition that when times are good, everybody can sort of do okay.
I think the rise of HubSpot shows that people want results now. They're seeing through a lot of that. Yeah, it's really changing.
Inbound and
inbound marketing is incredibly valuable, but HubSpot is not a panacea either. Like the inbound world is not a panacea. Like I still feel like strategy,
Good creative.
a good creative, engaging content, no matter what it is, it's HubSpot's a great model. Simplycast here is a great model. They've tapped into something that's needed in the marketplace. However, all of that with the wrong target audience, with the wrong message, with the wrong kind of content, it doesn't matter. You get a bunch of inbound bullshit that you can't deal with.
So maybe let's talk about, as much as you want to talk about, the transition from leaving Extreme, going into the startup world, selling software, and then going back into the agency world. How did that come about?
It wasn't a linear conversation, I can tell you that. The Extreme thing kind of ran its natural progression. I was a partner, but a minority partner. I wanted more. The majority partner said he wanted to figure that out, and over 5 years we went back and forth and tried to figure out succession, and quite frankly, it just didn't work. Our visions didn't meet. We weren't aligned. And well before it ended, I started thinking about, well, what do I want out of this? And, the business had changed for me at Extreme where I used a very pretentious analogy of the waffles in executive class didn't taste very good going up to Toronto. I was getting no joy out of what we did or how we did it, and trying to figure out how can I inject some of that back into my life. So a longtime friend of mine that we would just have a beer once or twice a year and talk about business. Guy's named Peter Hickey, who's a brilliant business mind. Actually, at one point I tried to bring him into Extreme to start a business consulting practice, because we saw a lot of companies that didn't need advertising, they needed to fix their business. And he had an MBA, and he was a smart guy and personable and all that sort of stuff. And about a year and a half before I left Extreme, he and I were having a beer, and he was working for a company out of New York and flying all over the world. He's in Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia and London. But he wasn't having any fun either. And he said, how are we going to do business together? What are we going to do together? And Peter had some software. I had some money out of Extreme. And we both thought, we have a really good idea here. How do we make this into something, into a company? It's enterprise content management software. There seemed to be a need. We went and talked to some local folks that we value their opinion quite a bit. Most of them, not in an unplanned fashion, had experience outside of the region, lots of experience outside of the region. And we just started a company called Oars 4. Originally it was called, I forget what it was called originally.
Oh.
Anyway, we over almost 5 years raised over $6 million. And you got to be an entrepreneur again. I went to, from living a pretty good life at Extreme to making less than a third of what I was making there. And it's funny. It reinvigorated me. It made me feel like a business person again, and the things that I had learned there, as opposed to sitting back and managing people. Right. You had some purpose in your life, and there was some more enjoyable things to do. If you can't do that within your own company, then it's time to move on. And
kind of like a hunt, right?
Entirely. And we built this company not to pass it on to our kids. We built it to exit. We built it to sell. And we thought we had a great product. And over 5 years, we had 18 acquisition conversations, which very exciting. Learned a ton. Learned that, the biggest lesson is a lot of people can say no. Very few people can say yes. We talked to Google and SAP and Box.com, And, you know, we had our dreams lifted up right in front of us and then smashed in front of us as well. And you know, it's a tough life because you're trying to fund a company, and at the same time you're trying to grow a company, and at the same time you're trying to convince people that they should invest in a company. And, you know, then the acquisition conversation comes along and someone's flashing a bunch of cash in front of you, and people are saying, well, don't think about the money, just keep growing the company. And you're like, well, you know, my 36% of this company right now would make me pretty comfortable if they decide to buy us. And
Yeah.
it's a different kind of entrepreneurship. And after, I have to say, about 2.5, 3 years in, we had very serious conversations our second time in with Google. And with Sundar Pichai, who's now the CEO of Google and Alphabet.
Oh, wow.
After that, it was kind of like a dagger in my heart a little bit, that, you know, that was the pinnacle. That was the lottery win. That was the big thing, and the thought of going out and calling people and say, would you like to sign up for this software for $20 a user a month? It just becomes different. And, you know, all of us around the executive table felt like, you know, it's a great piece of software. Still is a great piece of software.
Tell the users what it is, just because they're probably going.
It's enterprise content management. So basically what we did is we created a system that could find any document in any source in 3 clicks or less. So on a mobile device, on your desktop, it was in SharePoint, hard drive, didn't matter where. So you're going into a meeting, you need to pull up a spreadsheet of the last sales projections, bang, 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 you got it. So,
Right.
And it demoed really well, and we had some early adopters and customers and stuff like that. And it's all very exciting. And, you know, I spent 3 months down in Silicon Valley and, you know, meetings with anyone. I met more billionaires than I ever have here in Halifax. But we, you know, the interesting thing about that is, you know, people would give you the time of day. So if Vinod Khosla, one of the biggest venture capitalists in California, well, in the world, offered to give us 30 minutes, and we got an hour with him, and then he introduced us to other people. Henry Wong, who's part of Garage Ventures with Guy Kawasaki and Bill Reichert. Again, you know, it's interesting how they go about business. They said, okay, we give you an hour. We spent 2 hours with them, and at one point Henry Wong looked at us and he said, you know what, guys? I love this. No product, no customers. I love it. But that's honestly how they think about things down there. It totally changed my view of business and opportunity. But after having sort of been to the top of the mountain and almost touching the summit, it's hard to pull yourself back up. It's hard to get excited about this thing again when, you know, everybody around you is telling you that this thing is going to, you know, you guys are going to be set for life. You can pick whatever you want to do. Like,
if you could go back, or in hindsight, would you say no to those meetings and focus on growing the company and getting the customers and getting the product where it needs to be?
Yes and no. It's a waffly answer because, listen, we were focused on getting the customers and growing the business, and we were hiring salespeople. And, you know, what I would have focused on doing was getting the money to execute the plan that we had.
Yes.
So to do what we said we were going to do. So if we said it's going to cost $1.5 million, and we got $750K, I would wait until I got the other $750 before going in and making any promises, because you know, investors, no matter what, they're like, well, you had a plan to do X. Well, we only have half the money. Well, we still expect you to do X. But I don't care who you are. It's hard to put down the phone when Google calls.
Yeah.
When the head of M&A at Google says, "Hey, are you guys open for a meeting?"
How are they finding you?
We actually, when I was down in Silicon Valley, they have all of these horrible little pitch competitions where you have anyway. The worst one was the one that I actually met our CEO to be at. It was a 60-second pitch. He got on stage
We've
for
done
60
those.
seconds.
I did one of those drunk, and it didn't work well. I got red flags.
It's bullshit. I actually kind of got in a fight with one of the judges from the stage. Did you? Yeah. I told her I had the mic and I had the right to talk. So she had a bit of a pickle up her ass. So anyway, I met this guy who had been in the enterprise content management space, had been part of an exit to Microsoft, and sort of knew that business. And he literally knew everyone in the valley, or pretty close to it. And he said, after this disastrous thing up there, and this is all I wanted to do, was meet one or two people at any of these things. I didn't care about winning it.
Right.
So I'm getting a drink at the bar, and he comes up and he says, "Hey, my name's Reza. I'm interested in what you guys are doing." He said, "I've been looking for a company for 6 years like this." And we met in his office, which was the Starbucks in Los Altos Hills in Silicon Valley. And we had CEOs and CMOs and CFOs coming up and saying hi to this guy so we hired a CTO from the Valley, and we hired a CEO from the Valley. I was the CEO, and I said, you know what? This guy has a better chance of getting us into Google or Box or Salesforce. We ended up in Salesforce twice. We went to SAP, Google twice. And it's, again, the willingness to say, you know what? If this is our goal, I'm not the guy that's going to do it. I can get all the meetings in the world through the consulate, and they're great. They're fantastic once you leave the country. Canada will make sure you get the meetings.
Yeah.
But this guy knew how to get us into the right VCs, and to,
Somebody who just lives and breathes it every day.
and it's crazy. Like, we went to see Jerry Yang's team. So the guy that founded Yahoo agreed to meet with us. Now, we met with all of his lieutenants, but we went into his, and these VCs are pretty crazy. You walk in, it's a nondescript former auto garage, and you go behind this white wall, and it's just like, it's like you've walked into Nirvana.
Really?
And I actually remember going into one VC, and we had rented a Hyundai SUV, and I pull in, and all of a sudden a McLaren F1 pulls in next to me, and a woman who's probably 35 pops out of the McLaren and trots over, and the gull-wing doors go boo, and I'm getting out of my dented up Hyundai rental car.
So you went into a VC office.
Yeah, no, it's just another world. But the big takeaway from being down there is our ideas are just as good, our technology is just as good, our people are just as good. We just have less access to the capital and the experience of having gone through this stuff. And I met people down there that were multimillionaires. And one woman said to me, it was just winning the lottery. She was employee number 3 at TiVo. Just graduated with a marketing degree, and they needed someone to answer phones and help them with whatever. Ended up being the CMO, and when they went public, boop, she was gone. She had a horse ranch. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in, Andrew, and sharing your awesome experience.
No, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully it's useful, and at least 3 people out there like this.
I'm sure more than that.
This is a good one.
4.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Boom.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you rate and or review us on the iTunes Store. If you have a story or lesson to share with other agency owners and managers from around the world, hit us up. Just email Kyle or Kevin at proposify.biz. And also, if you write business proposals and you want to make that process a whole lot easier and more streamlined, check out proposify.biz and sign up for a free 30-day trial. Cheers!